Okay, so I think we're going to get started. And we have some great people here today. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Bethany Zemba, and I'm Vice President and Chief of Staff. We also have President Olian joining us today, our Provost, Deborah Leibowitz, our Chief Experience Officer, Tom Ellett, and we have our doctor who's been guiding us through this COVID situation, doctor and also professor at the medical school, David Hill. And I'm going to turn this over to Judy Olian.
Thanks, Bethany, and hello, everyone. Welcome to all our parents, and I hope everyone's healthy and well. It's so nice to have our Bobcat family here together this weekend. For those of you who are not in Hamden, it is glorious after a lot of rain yesterday. Blue skies, brisk, but what a beautiful fall day out here. And I really wish we were together in person. Our team has been hard at work coming up with some creative ways to inform and entertain you this weekend. Right after this town hall, for example, you can get a peek at what life is like at QU this fall. Our students, faculty, and staff will take you on a live tour around our campuses. Again, wish you were here, but this is a close second. And Chef Chris is giving a virtual cooking class at 4 p.m. on how to prepare some of your fall favorites. And at 6:30, our Department of Visual and Performing Arts will show you how improv applies to daily life during the COVID era, both at work and at home. We could all use some good laughs this fall, so you should tune in to that. Speaking of COVID, as we know, we've spared no effort to make this fall semester in person possible and make it possible to go to school in the midst of a pandemic. That's been top of mind for all of us day and night. We recognize you've entrusted us not just with your students' learning and personal growth, but also with their health. And there could be nothing more important than that. So later on, I'm going to ask Dr. David Hill, the university's senior medical advisor on COVID, to review the latest developments. I want you to know that there is so much more going on at Quinnipiac beyond COVID, both in the here and now and with a vision of tomorrow as we continue to invest in becoming the university of the future. The pandemic has reshaped broad aspects of what we do, but it does not redefine who we are. Time and again throughout our history at Quinnipiac, we've turned circumstance into opportunity, and we're continuing to do that today and into the future. There's no doubt the pandemic has afflicted tragedy on families from all walks of life. People have lost livelihoods, businesses have struggled, the comforting day-to-day rhythms of our lives are disrupted, and as social beings, we can't be very social at work or in families or with our friends. I know I miss that terribly. But we've had to rise above these circumstances and we have to see our future. We won't let this be a last year at QU. It'll be a year of discovery and growth where we demonstrate to ourselves, to our students, and to the communities we serve how adversity and uncertainty and uncover new qualities among us, spark innovation, surface kindness, and teach us new forms of resilience and compassion that will strengthen us as individuals and as community going forward. 2 weeks ago, we participated in a virtual event about how the state of Connecticut has responded to COVID, including Governor Lamont and the CEOs of the 4 largest healthcare systems in our state. There was an interesting conversation. You'll recall that Connecticut was hit very hard during the initial wave of COVID this past spring. Yet we've been fortunate that the disease trajectory turned around and that we've been largely successful managing the virus since the summer. Connecticut is now among the top 10 states in terms of total testing performed, and we're still maintaining a relatively low rate of contagion with a 1.2 infection rate. We've come down, we've had a bit of an uptick, but it's still manageable, especially in the region that we're in. And Connecticut has recovered quite well because our leaders pulled no punches. They confronted the challenges with eyes wide open, even if that meant some hard choices in order to keep the state moving forward. And I think that's what we've done here at Quinnipiac, confronting the challenges, making some hard choices, and continuing to move forward with our mission of academic excellence and career preparation for your sons and daughters while living in a world with COVID. Well, I haven't been involved in a military maneuver, and I'm sure some of you have. It sure felt like one here, preparing our campuses and our classrooms for a safe in-person experience this fall, and to stay that way. At the same time, as leaders of this institution for today and for the future, we haven't moved away from advancing our strategic plan and what it means to be the university of the future. I'm going to share 4 specific examples that demonstrate our focus on the future and the reasons I'm so bullish on what lies ahead for our Bobcat families. The first is about wellness. COVID has been a pointed reminder of just how important it is that we continue to support and enhance the way we address our students' total health, mind, body, and spirit. Here at Quinnipiac, we've continued to move forward with our plans to build a brand new recreation and wellness center. It'll sit in the center of our Mount Carmel campus, and it'll be a place for both physical and mental well-being. The data are very convincing. In 2019, 90% of colleges and universities reported an increase in students seeking counseling services, and Quinnipiac hasn't been an exception. And only half of college students rate their physical health as excellent or very good. Of course, this is also what we're seeing on a national level. I saw some data just published from the census, and there was a question in there that resulted in the following. A third of Americans, are now reporting signs of clinical anxiety or depression. We're also seeing new ways of supporting these healthcare needs, some of which are driven out of necessity by the pandemic. Some industry research predicts 80 to 90% of all outpatient healthcare services in our country could soon become virtual. And that's why we're performing extensive research and analysis to make sure that both the types of services offered as well as the delivery approaches we use here at Quinnipiac will be well aligned with the needs of our campus community. The new Recreation and Wellness Center will also house our student health services. Our team there is already using telehealth to check in on our students in isolation or quarantine housing this fall. They use telehealth for therapy all through the spring and summer months. And we're learning from that experience about how to move forward. With the help of outside experts, we're determining how to best apply a combination of in-person and telehealth services to expand the responsiveness and availability of student health services to our community. The new facility will also be a world-class gym. It'll offer spaces to spin or take a yoga class or a program on stress management or how to sleep better, or to just have a fresh pressed juice or cup of coffee with a friend. Our faculty from the Health Sciences, Nursing, and Medical School will lend their expertise to these programs to reflect the most current research on health and wellness. Once our board approves the concept, design, and funding of the Recreation and Wellness Center, we hope to break ground in 2021. I'll ask Professor Provost Leibowitz to share our second example, which relates to the innovation we're accelerating in both academics and our use of technology.
Thank you very much, President Olian. And it's really nice to be here today with you. As Judy said, unfortunately, we're not all getting to do this in person, but I'm really happy to be able to share some of the exciting things that we're doing with you. And, you know, we all knew that in higher ed that we were going to need to double down at some point on our efforts to build both capacity and a platform for the remote delivery of education. But there's no question that the pandemic has taken that timeline and really set it on fire. It's put it on warp speed. And some institutions, many institutions actually, have really struggled to make that shift so quickly. But one of the things that I'm proud about here at Quinnipiac is that we saw this not only as a need, but also as an opportunity. That faculty and staff, backed by our excellent IT team, spent the summer turning 225 learning spaces into high-performing, technology-enhanced spaces that use Zoom as a kind of backbone, but also integrate things like whiteboard technology, multiple screens, other kinds of things that so we can now deliver classes concurrently, live and remotely. And you see on the screen this image of the Zoomtopia conference. And, this is really here just to say that as a testament to our industry leading investment in this area, Quinnipiac was invited by the leadership at Zoom to present at this week's Zoomtopia conference. And this is a preeminent event in the tech sector that attracts tens of thousands of attendees. And QU was asked to share the stage, not with other schools, but with eBay and Viacom, other serious tech innovators in their own industries, to discuss how we deployed Zoom and technology more broadly as the backbone of our QFlex instructional model. And I share this example, not because we've done it perfectly in the first time around. We'll be continuing to kind of learn from the way we've used the technology and develop what we're referring to as QFlex 2.0. But because at the very core of Quinnipiac's DNA is this kind of innovation. And it shows that our students get more than just the theoretical in classroom instruction. And surveys of employers repeatedly show that they think there's a gap as college graduates enter the workforce, particularly around their ability to apply knowledge and skills in real world settings. But that's not the case for our QU graduates, which is why we rank so high nationally in terms of our outcomes. But the way we've incorporated Zoom and technology into our hybrid learning model is a very real example of the kind of practical real world applications of technology that are being directly incorporated into students' learning and that are going to help students be prepared to start their careers on day one, given that the kind of acceleration of the integration of technology that we're seeing in higher ed is something that you are all experiencing as well in your areas of work. And students will confront that as they move from the university out into their chosen fields. Turn it back to Judy. You're muted.
Thank you. Let me remind everyone.
Technology is not free from, no matter, even if QU is innovative, technology is not free from human error here.
Let me remind everyone that they can go to the chat function and put in your questions, and we'll certainly leave ample time at the end for your questions. Thanks, Deborah. And Deborah mentioned preparing our students to enter the workforce. The third highlight I'd like to share points to Quinnipiac's growing ability to attract national leaders to our campus to give our students market-driven insights. We launched a new speaker series called The Way Forward this summer, and it connects our university community with leaders, visionaries, and established professionals from across the country as they share thoughtful ideas and innovative solutions about some of the most current and pressing challenges facing society. This is one of those silver linings of the pandemic. Technology and people's use of video conferencing has made it easier for these leaders to make time for our students without having to fly across the country or take days out of their schedules. Through technology, we're able to offer our students access to some of the brightest minds and greatest leaders. It helps them take what they're learning in the classroom and see how these skills are used at work and in the marketplace. It also connects these luminaries to our university, which itself can be very constructive. We've had the governor of Connecticut, CEO of one of the largest hotel chains in the world, editors from the Wall Street Journal and Financial Times, owner of the Golden State Warriors and chief business officer for the Detroit Pistons, head of Google Health, former CEO of Johnson & Johnson, and the list goes on. This is one of the ways Quinnipiac continues to expand the learning experiences of our students. The series can also connect directly to classroom instruction for relevant schools. For example, our School of Communications could build on the session with the managing editors of the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times with an assignment to write a story on a controversial news topic and then examine the resultant stories through the lens of the considerations articulated by the managing editors. Let me ask Deborah again to share one more example before we turn the floor over to David for our update on COVID.
All right, thanks, Judy. So one of the other ways and one of the reasons actually that I was attracted to joining Quinnipiac just 3 months ago is because I saw that this university is clearly on the rise. I believe that QU is on the precipice of going from being a strong, well-respected regional institution to becoming a national brand. And one of the things that's driving the evolution is the academic excellence and growing prominence of our faculty. And here on the screen, you see, a few of those individuals. Our faculty not only publish and conduct research, but they've become sought after national experts and commentators on a variety of issues. And these are the issues that they bring into the classroom for rich and engaging conversation and learning opportunities. They're the issues, in a way, this is the peak not only of the academic and professional pedigree of your students' professors, but it also shows that they're debating and exploring in class the things that are directly being discussed in the country today, and some of our most pressing and challenging issues and also opportunities. And those are the same things, of course, that they're going to be challenging and having to talk about when they leave Quinnipiac and move into the workforce. So this is why I tend to think that all QU classrooms are really truly a learning lab, not just literal labs in the medical and health sciences, but you also see on this screen as well, other examples of faculty being recognized for their expertise and excellence. So just a couple of examples. Kalfani Touré is an assistant professor of criminal justice, a former police officer. Kalila Brown's an associate professor of political science, senior director for inclusive excellence at QU. And they're both now regularly asked by national media to discuss race relations, issues of social justice in America. And the two have appeared in over 2,000 news stories this year from the New York Times, the Washington Post, USA Today. Bill Dunlap, a professor of law, has become a regular commentator on constitutional law and has been all over the Amy Barrett Supreme Court nominee. He was on Court TV last week commenting on the confirmation hearings. And then our faculty are being nationally recognized in the areas of their study. And, and they have won many awards. And in addition to the ones on your screen, Sheila Maloney and the School of Nursing's work on improving the lives of people with dementia was recognized by an industry publication as one of the best updates that they had published in the last decade. Greg Garvey, a professor of game design, has just won a prestigious grant from the Epic Games company to support his ongoing work. Another faculty member in the physician's assistant program was just both, as you see, Lisa Barrett on the screen was awarded a Master Faculty Award, but also someone else in that program was given a Lifetime Achievement Award. And so, you know, I know that Judy wanted to give all of you a sense of the vision we have for the university as we talk about the state of the school and what comes tomorrow. But I see that these types of examples are everywhere in my daily experiences as I interact with folks in all of the schools. And that makes me really excited that the university, you know, that the university your child has chosen is a university that continues to rise in prominence and really prepare students for their careers and future success. So I'll turn it back to Judy now that I'm done bragging about the faculty.
Thank you, Deborah. And I'm reminding people it's actually in the Q&A function that we would love for you to place your questions. So yeah, I hope you don't mind us bragging a bit about the here and now and also about our future. As easy as it is to get mired in the complexities today, we cannot and have not taken our eye off the future trajectory of this fantastic university. There is a tomorrow and we're building with excitement toward that bright future. I'll now, I guess, pivot back to today, and I'm going to ask Dr. David Hill, our esteemed and expert senior medical director and faculty member of the QU Netter School of Medicine. He'll give us a brief update on QU's COVID-related mitigation efforts and how the fall is going.
Judy, thank you very much, and a warm welcome to everyone on this beautiful fall day in New England. So let me begin by recognizing the long hours, additional work, and sustained effort that the faculty and staff have put in to support our students' academic and health needs during this time of COVID. Across the entire university, every school, department, division, and unit, all have labored over the challenge of not just returning to campus, but staying here and pursuing the characteristic excellence in teaching, operations, and student care that we have always offered. I'll share a brief story. Last week, we just completed a months-long reaccreditation with the New England Council of Higher Education. This is a process colleges and universities go through every 10 years and is an outside evaluation conducted by our peer institutions to assess academics and the student experience. I am very proud to say we not only achieved reaccreditation, but one of the things that really impressed the commission conducting the review is Quinnipiac's response to COVID. The commission chairman during his exit interview said, "This is QU at its best." QU was also just recently profiled in a story in Politico about the few colleges that are writing the playbook for pandemic success. This makes me very proud of the work that so many of my colleagues have been doing. It truly takes a village to be successful. We're extremely fortunate to be in the position that we currently find ourselves. And that reflects the careful planning we have been doing since February and the cooperation of our entire community, faculty, staff, and students to our health recommendations. I'll focus my update on COVID on 3 areas. First, we developed a comprehensive testing strategy and COVID mitigation plan that balanced the risks of the virus with science. Since our students have returned to campus, we performed nearly 17,000 tests. This includes testing of all our students after their arrival and then weekly asymptomatic testing. To date, we've had 26 students with COVID since we came back to campus on August 5th, and that gives us a 0.2% positivity rate. All but 4 of these cases have been among students living off campus. We built a custom testing model with a collaboration of our faculty from the health sciences, mathematics, and sociology. We sample weekly representative students from every residence hall, every floor of every hall, and each of our off-campus housing, both undergraduate and graduate. So it's not really a completely random sampling, but it's carefully targeted. Notably, the model we built estimated that we would have 95 positive cases by this date in October and so far we've had 26. Our testing model is flexible, so we're able to increase targeted sampling as needed based on trends we're seeing in positive cases. For example, we have increased sampling of off-campus students, given that most of our COVID cases have occurred in these students. When we have a student with COVID, we have our own contact tracing team with 21 volunteers trained by both the state of Connecticut and Johns Hopkins University. They deploy their work in minutes to hours of hearing of a case, not in days, as might be the situation if we relied upon the local health department. And we check the health of our community through a symptom checking application that more than 7,300 of our students have downloaded. Our second major effort has been the intentional way we have fostered shared buy-in from students in the local community, even before the semester began. We thank you, parents, who have been instrumental in setting students' expectations and reinforcing responsible behaviors. We have a team of peer health ambassadors and student leaders who have really owned their role in being a positive influence among their peers. For example, our students came to the COVID task force and asked for chairs to be taken out of the dining hall when they saw their peers not observing the "don't sit here" signs. We've also briefed all our community partners about our reopening plans, local and state elected officials, first responders, and business owners. We even hand distributed a community guide that we created to hundreds of local residents who live among our off-campus students to make sure they knew about the measures Quinnipiac was putting in place to protect the health of our local community and how to contact us if they had any questions or concerns. The local fire chief of Hamden has become a vocal advocate of QU's efforts. He appreciates that not every college or university is having the same positive experience as Quinnipiac this fall. And when schools have much larger outbreaks, that puts a clear strain on local community resources. And finally, our plan this fall has called for university leaders to walk the walk, literally. We could not just issue policies on paper and then sit back and expect students to follow their guidance. Leadership from the very top, starting in our president's office on down, has engaged regularly with our students, checked in on them, used their feedback to improve how we're doing things, and acknowledged that this is not your typical fall semester. So we will work through this together. In this slide, you see our Chief Experience Officer, Tom Ellett, in the top center, sitting with students who are part of a new program he conceived called Pods in the Quad. The idea is to have leadership, staff, faculty gather regularly with students in small groups outdoors. There's also a picture of the Dean of our School of Nursing, Lisa O'Connor, holding a box of COVID tests ready to be shipped to our testing partner. She's volunteered her time at nearly every testing clinic we have, and we have those twice weekly. On the left is our Vice President of Human Resources and our General Counsel, Alicia Spearman, taking a selfie with one of our students while helping out at a testing session. The Student Programming Board has stepped up with a variety of outdoor activities: yoga on the quad, hikes up Sleeping Giant, game night, movie night. They even built a mini golf course on the quad. And we had a student town hall last Monday that was sponsored and moderated by the peer health ambassadors to give our students a forum to ask their questions of us, since we've seen COVID cases on campus. On the other hand, we have to be serious about enforcement. 43 of our students so far have been sent home for 4 weeks for not complying with our policies on gatherings or visitors. We have 5 weeks left in the semester before Thanksgiving break, and we're all very proud of how our students have supported our health measures and each other. And we thank you, parents, for encouraging that. We look to repeat the successes we had this fall during our spring semester. So I'll turn it back to Judy.
Thank you, David, and thank you for all of your efforts in making Quinnipiac really a safe and caring campus. Before we open up the floor for questions, I wanted to introduce the newest member of the university's leadership team, Dr. Tom Ellett, and give him a few minutes to talk about his role as Chief Experience Officer. It's a new role for Quinnipiac and a rather unique one for all of higher ed. It's a position focused on integrating all of the student-facing functions, such as enrollment management, student affairs, housing, dining, bursar, registrar, health services, veterans affairs, and public safety. we separated those functions out from under the provost and EVP position that was a structure here before, so that the provost can be focused entirely on academic and curricular issues, with the CXO addressing all aspects of the university related to the student experience outside of class, so that in combination between the provost and CXO leadership roles, we deliver an exceptional experience for our students, both inside and outside the classroom. Tom joins us from NYU, where he was Senior Associate Vice President for Student Affairs and oversaw a program that supported 50,000 students. Tom also has deep experience building living learning communities to enrich student intellectual and personal growth. It's a model he delivered and lived in during his time at both Syracuse and NYU. And now we're so very fortunate to have him bringing that expertise to Quinnipiac. Tom.
Thank you, Judy. I am actually very thrilled to be here with you parents who have, as Judy said, entrusted us with your most prized gift in possession, your children. And we're very glad to have them on our campus. Let me tell you to Quinnipiac. First of all, being a Chief Experience Officer, as Judy said, this is the first one in the country, and it's exciting to be in that role. But most important, being here to help realize a really thoughtful strategic plan to be the university of the future, to be among and working with this group of colleagues who is here on the screen under Judy's leadership. And finally, being on a beautiful campus, in a smaller campus where I think my gifts and talents of outreach and engagement with students will be best utilized and realized. Judy explained my position, Chief Experience Officer. And at the end of the day, the goal for me is to make sure that your students have the absolute best experience during their time here at QU, and they get the support they need. Judy also talked about the residential experience, one that plays a big place in my heart. What is a living learning community? I want to share with you some of those aspects. A living learning community is really a comprehensive place where a campus integrates the life of the mind, body, and spirit through intentional interplay of faculty outside the classroom, really bridging that divide and bringing it into the residence halls. Maybe courses being taken with floor mates, special theme and interest floors, amenities and upgrades to the residence halls that will really support the outside interests of our students. Yoga areas, places for students to have small group dialogues, practice rooms, classrooms, and places to relax among each other. It becomes a home, a place where moves from a residential dorm title to really a place where students can hone in on professional skills. And I believe the more adult presence in a residence hall creates a cultural change and a really differential advantage for our students. Also, I want to talk a little bit about services, and I'll briefly touch upon them. Dining as well. I know that's a point of interest for our students and parents. We appreciate the feedback students and parents have about the dining program, and we take the input very seriously. I've created a dining services advisory board, which meets every other week with our dining general manager and with the students who are most interested in the program. We've also established a DSAB email account for direct feedback for the students who are unable to attend our meetings. And also we're in the process of hiring a third-party consultant who we're asking to audit 3 key areas of our dining program: our food quality, which we will never compromise, our services, the design, cost, and options of the dining plan, and how we move forward with dining at QU, including a review of our partnership with Chartwell's. We're committed to offering high-quality dining program, and we'll use the recommendations of the audit to make any changes necessary to the food served and the dining services plan options available. I'll also add that we hired our first 4 students to work at the dining facilities just this past week. We're very excited by that, and we look to see that grow over time. I raise this dining example because it's really a great illustration of why we need what I call a one-stop service model in place at QU. I'll end this note because it's a vision I have in things of bringing pieces of the university together in a coordinated way, as Deborah mentioned earlier, It can be a distinct part of the QU experience for our students. That one-stop area will include registrar, the bursar, student employment potentially, and QU card, the residence hall administrative operations, a place where students can go to one place with staff cross-trained and can answer questions that students aren't moved from one office to the other. It is a model that a percentage of universities are using now, and I think it will serve QU very well. Finally, I want to say is I love the work that I'm doing, and I've really enjoyed meeting your students. Thank you very much. Judy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tom. And I can tell you that Tom spends every waking minute, morning, afternoon, and night with our students. And I think it's really being felt. He's seen across many, many groups. I want to thank the entire leadership team gathered here. You've not seen all of us, but you've seen some key members who live and breathe Quinnipiac and live and breathe the educational experience for your students. I want to open it up now and maybe turn it back over to who will be our MC, is Todd Sloan, who oversees development and alumni relations and parent relations, and maybe he can field the questions that you have, whatever is on your mind. And again, please remember to just post your questions in the Q&A. So Todd.
Thank you, Judy, and greetings to everyone. As was noted earlier, technology sometimes presents challenges, and as I was about to open the session, my own internet crashed, so I apologize for that. But glad I could be here with all of you on a great virtual parent weekend. So I'm going to kick it off with a question to Dr. Hill that came from Elizabeth. And that is, with all the emphasis that we've had on student testing, are there any thoughts relative to testing of faculty and staff?
We've certainly considered the issues around testing of all members of our community. Let me start by saying our faculty and staff are fully engaged with our plans, our protocols to keep our campus safe. And so all of them, when they come in to campus and they work on campus, are physically distancing, and they're wearing face coverings, face masks. So they are not transmitting virus to other individuals. They're also participating in our symptom checking application. So if they receive having a fever or a cough or otherwise feel unwell, they will be instructed to seek care from their primary care physician, not to come to campus, and to notify human resources. And all of our faculty and staff that are on our Quinnipiac health insurance have the ability to get free COVID testing. There also is excellent testing in our community through one of our federally qualified health centers, community health centers, and through Yale New Haven Health Services. So we feel that the faculty and staff are practicing safe measures when they're on campus, and generally that's a limited period of time. They're not as much interacting in the social settings that our students might be, and they are checking symptoms, and they do have access to testing off campus.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Tom, there's a few questions coming in around the student experience, so maybe we can put a couple of them in a one framed question. So as you're looking at our off-campus students, how are we ensuring that they're having the fullness of the student experience? And also, as we emphasize career success and educational success, how are we also encouraging our students to lift one another up?
I'll give you a great example. Thank you, Todd. I'll give you a great example. I have a freshman advisory board that continues to grow. We're up to 17 students who I meet with every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And last night, one of the students who were in quarantine, mother contacted me and said, my daughter is really dying for a hamburger. And so I tweeted that out to my freshman advisory board saying, would someone go to the Bobcat Den and pick up the meal for this student and leave it right at the front door so they don't have to go to the quarantine building? And I had 14 answers within like 4 minutes of But I'll do it.
Cool.
I will tell you, I have been so impressed by your sons and daughters at this institution. There hasn't been one student I have said hello to that hasn't responded. Remember, I'm coming from you where students' eyes would go down to the ground and not want to meet you, even with a mask on. And so I'm really excited about the engagement. We have engagement through these advisory boards I'm creating, and certainly our involvement fair started the whole year off, where our upper class students who are leaders held the fair socially distanced on the quad, where students would walk through it socially distant and be able to meet with others in leadership positions, the first year students, to see what clubs and organizations existed. Our MyQ website allows students to go in and still contact those clubs and leaders who they may want to be involved in right now. And I'd encourage any of you, sons or daughters who aren't active, we have a freshman, sophomore, and junior advisory board, please send an email to cxo@qu.edu. As it relates to the off-campus residents and our students, clearly they are the upper class students who live off campus. And we are looking them as leaders of our clubs and organizations to engage with our underclass students. But again, through the methods that we have said, safety first is most important. A number of those upper class students are our peer health advisor, our RAs, our student government leaders, all of those who are really setting the tone for how we keep the bubble protected. So those are some of the ways that students are being engaged.
Thank you, Tom. So back to Dr. Hill, a few questions coming in about protocols, parents asking that, are they able to come on campus to visit their students, and about, tours around orientation and whatnot. So maybe a few words on what our protocols are and as we're protecting the bubble.
So I'll share this answer with Tom as well. We realize this is a really hard time for everybody, for students and for parents. And students want to hug their parents and parents want to hug their students. They want to be and experience some of the wonders of being in the college environment. We also realize that the more people you bring onto campus, the higher risk it is of introducing COVID to the community. So we're really thinking very carefully about that. And so with campus tours, we do allow individuals in small groups, just a few times a day, under guidance and complete control of our admissions officers, to tour in specified areas. They are not able to go into any of the dorms, for instance. They're on campus for a limited period of time. They're always under our observation, and then they will leave campus. We'd love to be able to have lots of parents come on, but it would just be ultimately unmanageable. And I know each one of you as a parent would be responsible when you're on campus, but if we multiply that by 50 visits or 100 visits on a weekend like now, there might be 300 or 400 visits. It's not a controlled situation, and we really worry about the possibilities of transmitting COVID on campus from people coming from the outside. So we've had to be strict. It's hard, we realize. Maybe Tom, do you want to say anything else about that?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the mark. Again, I think that keeping the campus as safe as possible is our primary focus right now. So, I think you covered it, David.
Thank you.
Tom, you might want to just mention about Uber Eats and Instacart, et cetera, ordering from that.
In terms of the dining?
Because the question here is, can students order food from Uber Eats or Instacart?
Yeah, they can. They have the ability to come and meet the Uber Eats outside, right where the guard gate is, right on the right-hand side of the guard gate. And so that is still a possibility and has worked for us. They stay socially distant. The person leaves the food right on top of their car, right on the top of the hood of their car, right outside on the side. And it's been working very well for us.
And should we mention that parents can pick their kids up for a meal?
Absolutely. Parents can come. Again, the officer will ask that you make the U-turn right in front of the gate, and the student can meet you right at the gate, pick you up. You can pick them up and bring them, and then bring them back. And as David mentioned, for students, they have to show their cue card at the gate, It has to turn green for them to come onto campus, meaning they have been tested and so forth before they can come onto campus, keep the campus safe.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Questions coming in about preparation for the spring, and especially as we prepare for spring sports. So Judy, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, and I think Deb and I should answer, because Deb should also talk about what we think academics will be. We've publicized what the schedule is going to be, and it's starting a week later with the same protocol, pre-testing before you come, and then once again testing once you're on campus. We think the move-in will be easier. Deborah will talk about just how we will be managing classes. About spring sports, at the moment, we are starting with men's and women's basketball and men's and women's ice hockey without spectators, which are winter sports. Fall sports, we think will be transferred to spring alongside spring sports in a somewhat constrained schedule, only conference games, we think. And all of this will be subject to the trajectory of the disease during that time, if we can still do that. Athletes are being tested before conference games once a week. 80% of them are tested on a randomized basis. And once they start competing, it'll be 3 times a week, 100% of the students. So it's a very carefully structured testing protocol. I do want to, somebody asked here, is there any kind of concentration of tests, positive tests in any facilities or in any teams or anywhere? Well, I think it's something like all but 4 of the cases on campus are off campus, and we can trace them to houses. So the 4 cases on campus, for example, 3 were in one suite and 1 was in another suite. And among the students off campus, they're all in clusters of houses, mostly, not really spread out onesies and twosies. So for the most part, it happens that if one person in a house or a suite gets sick, that exposes the others there. We have not seen any cases on a student athletic team, and I am knocking on wood as they practice. And we haven't been able to trace any of the cases to any particular location on campus. It is really to the places of residence. Remember that it's typically in proximal distance for 15 minutes or longer, indoors. So that really constrains to a great extent where the contagion will occur. Deborah, do you want to just talk about what the spring academic semester will look like?
Sure, just a couple things to augment what you just said, Judy, about the calendar. Move-in will begin on the 19th. It will be staggered again as it was last time. On the 25th, classes will begin, and they will begin for 1 week fully remotely online, and then in-person instruction will begin 1 week later on February 1st. We will not have spring break, as you, I'm sure, have seen almost. I predict there will be a very, very, very small handful of schools that keep spring break for obvious reasons, because of the pre-testing requirements and things like that. And yes, also because of, and I saw a question there, because of the quarantine requirement for folks from hotspot states. So we will also be observing those rules again. So if people are coming from hotspot states at that point, they will have to quarantine. In terms of instruction, we're going to be using what we are internally referring to as QFlex 2.0. We're really trying to take observations and feedback from students about their experiences this semester, and from faculty about their experiences this semester, and put that together, kind of morph some of our policies and to strengthen the meaningful nature of on-campus in-class experience. And the other thing you have to know about the difference between this semester and spring is that except for the first year, for first-year students, the schedule and registration was already done before we knew anything about how we were going to really deliver the educational experience for the fall, right? Because registration was done in April. And so for this semester, we have the opportunity, now that we actually know what we're looking at, we know what de-densified on-campus classroom space looks like. We have the opportunity to work with faculty about pedagogically which things they think most need to happen on ground, and then prioritize on ground space for those learning experiences. And as a result of being able to do all of this, we will have reduced right now there are many courses that have rotation schedules into the classroom. We're radically reducing those rotation schedules, being able to do things like this semester in biology, we have a very small number of labs, first year in particular, on ground. Next semester, we will have 100% of the labs will have on ground components for about what I estimate to be about 95% of the minutes that you would normally have. So that's just one kind of example. But I think we're, really being able to learn from the experiences this semester to try to improve the dual delivery, flexible delivery, but also the meaningful on-ground instruction for the spring.
Thank you, Deborah. So Tom, to you, there's a number of questions about the enforcement of policies. We're definitely taking very seriously maintaining the Bobcat bubble. So maybe a few words on how we're enforcing the policies, what the repercussions have been.
I mentioned earlier about the cue card for students who live off campus to get on campus having a green, which means you've met your testing requirements. As it relates to students who are living in the residence halls, we have put a memo out regarding not having guests in your residence hall from another residence hall, and certainly not having guests who are not from Quinnipiac. And so we have enforced that policy. Unfortunately, there have been 46 students who have been asked to leave the residence halls for a 4-week period of time for the first violation of the policy. A second violation would mean that they would be asked not to come back for the rest of the semester. Consistently with that, we have for the off-campus students who violate from learning from the Hamden community or neighbors, they would also have the inability to come to campus for a first violation. Second violation, they would be removed from the institution for the semester and not be able to continue their academics for the semester. So those are the things that we're doing as it relates to those who are not testing. So we ask, Dr. DeHild gave an idea of how we do our testing. So if a student misses the testing after a second time called, they would also follow the same situation where the first offense, the second time they didn't show up, they would be asked to leave the residence halls for a 4-week period of time for the first offense. And for those who live off campus, would not be allowed to be on campus. So those are how we're enforcing that. And I just want to say one thing. We ran all of these violations by our student government and peer health advisors before we put this into place. So our student leadership was very much involved in this process of what should we do to their peers and holding them accountable for what we're trying to accomplish this semester.
Thank you, Tom. And we want to be mindful that I know a number of you have registered for a 1 o'clock session inside the Bobcat bubble. So I'm going to have a final question posed to Bethany, and then Judy, if you want to just wrap it up. So Bethany, what are the plans for testing as we look at the spring semester? Will it be the same process as we've had for the fall?
Absolutely, happy to answer that. So we are planning to use the same 3-part planning process that we had in the fall. So that will start with a pre-test that will be mailed home, very similar to what was done in the fall semester. Same as in the fall semester, students who want to use their own provider and upload their results are able to do so. We just need to make sure that they do the correct test, which is the PCR test. The second part is our on-campus testing plan, which I know many of you have heard quite a lot about. We will continue that, where we're testing both our on-campus and off-campus students on a targeted sampling basis. And then the third piece of that plan is if a student is symptomatic and goes to our student health services, we will actually have a rapid test available at that time, so that we can figure out very quickly what is going on with that situation. And we will follow that up with a PCR test, much like what is done with students who go in for a strep test. Is very similar to that process. I also see a question about hotspot states and whether or not students need to quarantine if they travel to a hotspot state. So right now, the state of Connecticut has allowed a test out option. However, our university is continuing to have the 14-day quarantine standard in place. And that is because of the incubation period and wanting to be really certain that the student does not have COVID before they start interacting with other people. And then I will just turn to David because he's so great at adding to our testing plan and explaining things. So David, any additional thoughts?
So nothing additional. We'll have to see where we are as a state and as a country in the spring or following over December and January, and we'll finalize our plans and communicate those to you for the testing very clearly in early January. So I'll turn it back down to Judy, I think, for the final word.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, parents, for being so engaged. And I hope you see that we don't spare any thought or action, frankly, to safeguard the well-being of the community. I detect sometimes in some of the questions some frustration around just how we enforce such stringent guidelines on campus. And when you have that many students on campus, the only way to have a residential experience is really to be somewhat strict, very strict, and to really share responsibility and accountability with our students. I have been so impressed with our students. My office is on the quad, and I'm there multiple times a week. And people know that I leap out of my office if I don't see someone wearing a mask properly. And that doesn't happen. Our students are just so responsible and caring for themselves and for the broader community. And we are making sometimes even more stringent decisions than the state of Connecticut in order to protect the well-being of the whole. And that's how we will stay in session on campus, learning in a productive and creative way. Our faculty have been extraordinarily dedicated in not just adapting to this new model, but also reaching out to our students one-on-one so they have a sense of community among learners. I'm confident that we'll continue in the way we are through the spring. If you have any issues or questions, we're all available to you. You know that we respond to your emails. We ask that you be kind and constructive in the emails, and we will do everything to be responsive and to resolve any concerns you might have, because our commitment is very much to the best possible experience. So I thank you for participating, for being engaged parents, for caring for your loved ones at Quinnipiac, for helping them stay safe and responsible. And we will get through this and continue to ascend to the University of the Future. Thank you, everyone.